I hear you talk about it's in two ways, either political or ideological. So now, from where you stand or sit, what would you make of this Kaduna Abuja train attack? Is it political or ideological, like you said?
The information at my disposal suggests that there is a significant amount of political motive in the targeting of Kaduna. The concentrated attack that Kaduna has received suggests that there is a desire to show the weakness of both the federal as well as the state government with regards to governance in that state. And this may not be unconnected with the 2023 election.
Welcome back. If you just joined us, this is The Conversation. We're reaching you from Kaftan's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. Now let's get some more perspective on this very disturbing issue from Dr. Kabir Adamu. He is a security consultant. Hello, Dr. Adamu.
The pleasure is mine.
Great to have you. All right, now first, what do you make of this latest development and activities of bandits and terrorists in the country? How non-state actors incessantly attack infrastructure successfully, and they actually get away with it. Give us a sense of what this means for the country.
In simple terms, it means that they're getting away with what they set out to achieve in the first place. Whether these are bandits or terrorists, if we look at terrorists, their objective is to create fear with the hope of achieving whatever objective. Sometimes is ideological and other times is political. Now, in this instance, they are increasing the level of distrust that is between the citizens and government, and to an extent, reducing the ability of government to influence the people, and that gives them more influence in the areas of their operation. Now, if they are bandits by definition are groups that have outlawed themselves. They don't consider the laws, the constitution that governs any country. They don't consider that constitution as something that they recognize and go with. And so whether you look at it from that prism of banditry or just criminality, it's clear that these groups are challenging the authority, the supremacy, the monopoly of the use of force by the state. And in doing that, they are successfully reducing that capacity of the state to exert itself in its territory. And there is no where this is good for any country. That social contract between government and the people, where the government promises to protect its people, the citizens, is completely being depleted, unfortunately, by this. So in all ramifications, this is not a good development at all. In certain indices, it's an indication of the possibility of a failed state where non-state actors successfully challenge the supremacy of the use of force by the state.
Okay, all right. Now, Dr. Adamu, I hear you talk about it's in two ways, either political or ideological. So now, from where you stand or sit, what would you make of this Kaduna Abuja train attack? Is it political or ideological, like you said?
The information at my disposal suggests that there is a significant amount of political motive in the targeting of Kaduna. The concentrated attack that Kaduna has received suggests that there is a desire to show the weakness of both the federal as well as the state government with regards to governance in that state. And this may not be unconnected with the 2023 elections, but that does not rule out the two other motives. There is nothing that suggests that the two or three motives cannot be combined together. So as an example, a politician can decide to hire, for lack of a better word, a group that is either ideological or criminal in nature to achieve a political objective. So that does not rule out the possibility of the attack itself being carried out by a combination of both a bandit as well as an ideological group. Already, there is information suggesting that the bandits that we know operating in the north central and northwest region have been partnering with terrorist groups that are ideological. So there's nothing that eliminates the possibility that all three factors are at play here.
Oh wow, quite sad. Now days are still counting, and those that are abducted are yet to return or be reunited with their families or loved ones. How difficult is it to spot where they are and to get rescue operations? If they were taken with bikes, is it so difficult to spot their location before we start talking about prosecutions?
So, with all sense of responsibility, first off, let me condole with the families of loved ones who have either died or are currently missing. Let me also condole with the generality of Nigerians who have been traumatized as a result of this incident. I run a consultancy. It's called Beacon Consulting, and I'm currently supporting 3 families who have lost their loved ones, whose whereabouts is currently unknown. All 3 families have been contacted by the abductors. They are yet to make any demand. And like I said, we're supporting them. And I would also encourage you as the media. Unfortunately, some other media houses have made the error of identifying some of the victims. That's not going to help the victims in any way. The abductors are currently profiling them. And once a media house identifies a particular person and shows his picture or her picture, what it does is that it's helping the abductors to now profile that person, and to an extent to assist them in the ransom demand. They may give the person has some affiliation, maybe it's a political appointee and they don't know that time, then that picture, so I think there is a need for some kind of circumspect by the media to be careful and mindful of the kind of information that they release at this moment in time, so that they don't endanger the lives of the victims. Now, to your question directly, the information at my disposal suggests that these attackers came in vehicles. In fact, the types of vehicles have been clearly mentioned. For some reasons, I will not mention that now. But I mean, I'm a private player, and if I have this kind of information, I'm hoping that the government already has that information. Now, the security agencies failed in the surveillance capabilities that would have suggested something is wrong when 3 to 5 or even more vehicles are driving at that time of the night towards a rail line. If we had surveillance capabilities, would have been able to detect that and probably stop that train from arriving at that point. Not only that, they came out, took their time to plant an IED on the rail track. If we had good intelligence and surveillance capabilities, we should have noticed that and stopped that train from arriving there. So to answer your question directly, it's not rocket science. If we were serious, and some of the government departments who are collecting huge sums of money as budget for intelligence gathering, if they were doing their work, this wouldn't have happened. I know that the Railway Corporation has a senior ranking police officer deployed there as part of its security management structure, governance structure. I know that the DSS has a senior ranking officer that is deployed to the NRC as part of its security governance structure, as well as several other government departments. So by now, I expect that the government should have launched an investigation. First off, an in-house investigation, probably by the NRC, to find out what happened. And then the federal government should also conduct an investigation. And in fact, the parliament should set up an investigative committee to identify all of these faults that I've mentioned. So much has happened. Time would not even allow me to start discussing the failures in terms of lack of responsibility and accountability that led us to where we are. But an investigation will bring that out, and then hopefully those that are responsible should be held accountable. So in direct response to your question, it is stoppable. There are significant solutions that are out there, both in terms of intelligence and physical security deployment that could have prevented what happened on Monday.
Now, according to the Minister for Transportation, during an interview with newsmen, he blamed the attack on the Abuja-Kaduna rail line on lack of approval for funds requested by his ministry to procure digital security surveillance gadgets. Now, is that a viable means to an end if we have to get these gadgets?
With due respect to the minister, no. That is just one out of several layers of security. Just to explain what surveillance means. Surveillance means just using either visual, audio, or sometimes even thermal, as well as several other options for detecting changes in an environment, and then using that whatever you detect to now analyze and then identify why that change happened. So clearly, that is not enough to deter a would-be criminal. What it does only is to identify that, look, something is wrong, and then the next step will take. In my earlier response, I gave you instances that if we had good intelligence, so surveillance fit into that intelligence component. Now, intelligence in security arrangements stands on its own. Intelligence will not prevent an attack. What it will do is to give you the forewarning that an attack will happen. So there are several layers that are meant to support an intelligence capability. So in this instance, a perimeter fence around the rail track is absolutely important. Secondly, and more importantly than to support better surveillance, the communities, and I'm happy that the minister also mentioned that in an interview yesterday. I've been talking about this, frankly, since last year. Those communities that are living in that corridor, they need to be incorporated into the security architecture for the protection of the rail line. And what do I mean incorporating them? Giving them jobs, is making them see the relevance of a sustainable rail track, so that they themselves have the incentive to protect the rail track, because they know that's where their income is coming from. It's better than wasting 3 billion naira on a solution that frankly cannot stand on its own. There are 4 layers of security usually. And when all of those layers are working together, for a lot of reasons, I don't want to mention those layers here, but when those layers are working effectively together, then you would achieve good security. Where you just mention one, and that one is even just a small sub-component of an intelligence capability, then it's not good enough.
All right, now, Dr. Kabir, the Kaduna State actually is the major hub of military presence, and yet you have this incessant attacks there. Do you sense conspiracy here? Because just as the Kaduna State Governor, Nasir El-Rufai, once disclosed that investigations revealed some serving police and military officers have links with Bandit terrorizing the state and others. Is there more to this that meet the eyes?
Have that kind of information at my disposal, and as a professional, I wouldn't want to go into a conversation that I'm not aware of. What I know for a fact is that there are gaps within our security architecture that are being exploited by these gaps. Some of these gaps are internal to the security arrangement that we have in place. You are right, Kaduna is the most garrisoned state in the country. I'm not aware of any other state that has the number of security formations like Kaduna has. And so that tells us one thing, that security should not just be physical. Security goes beyond the physical arrangement that you have in place. So let me quickly explain what I mean. For time purposes, I'll be very brief. Of all the security formations that you have in Kaduna, none of them has responsibility for dominating the ungoverned spaces where this threat element. These threat elements are not hidden. We know them. These are bandits, gunmen who hibernate in forested parts, in mountainous areas, come out, carry out these attacks, and then take sometimes hundreds of people. If you count the number of abductees that are in Kaduna now, we may be looking at up to 1,000. Now, where do you hide 1,000 persons? You don't hide 1,000 persons inside a house. So they are there in those ungoverned spaces, but none of these formations has that mandate to dominate those ungoverned spaces. Now, that is rooted in the lacuna that our constitution has. The ungoverned spaces, most of them, apart from the reserves, are under the custody and care of the states. And as you know, security is still in the exclusive list. So the states don't have the capacity to enter those ungoverned spaces and dominate them. And the federal government is already stretched. And that is why we still have this gap, these ungoverned spaces where these are. So, like I said, I do not have any information at my disposal that would confirm the existence of, a fifth columnist or saboteurs within security organizations. But I also know that the level of grievance and grievance within our security organizations allows very easy incentivization for crime. So if I'm someone who wants to achieve whatever criminal or terrorist objective, and I have, let's say, $1 million in my hand, which these terrorists do, it will be very easy for me to engage several security officials and make them do what I want, sometimes consciously or sometimes unconsciously, due to this level of grievances. So there are gaps that are being exploited, and these gaps, some of them are internal to the security organizations, while others are external to the security organizations.
All right, now taking a cue from what you just said, now the lawmakers have ordered the security officials to carry out sustained bombardment on terrorist enclaves. Few days ago, and then also you have the Kaduna State governor who preferred a solution to end banditry as simultaneous military and ground operations, because he said that when you bomb these Zamfara forests, the bandit might move to Sokoto or Kebbi, Katsina and Kaduna. So he further said that although this simultaneous land and air assault in all these 5 affected states, including Niger State, at the same time, then you have troops in the camp as blocking force. It might lead to loss of innocent life, but the administration is actually willing to take the risk of collateral damage to secure Kaduna State and its environs. Now, is this actually a great step in the right direction? Is that the way to go?
With all due respect to His Excellency, the Executive Governor of Kaduna State, and the parliamentarians who are advocating for this, no, it won't solve the problem. Research and studies have shown that where you use unwarranted force against non-state actors, what all it does is it gives them the tool to recruit additionally from within the groups where they are operating, because all they will do is they point at a finger, look, they're killing us, and so they will be able to recruit more. What is more important is to strengthen the administration of criminal justice, strengthen intelligence, strengthen the administration of criminal justice. And I'll quickly explain what I mean. Through intelligence, you'll be able to identify the membership, the leadership of these groups. Now, as a journalist, I'm sure if I ask you, I can't ask you, but you are the one asking the questions, but I'm sure if I ask you, have you ever seen the picture, the name, the profile of any of the bandits or criminal gunmen operating in Kaduna State? The likelihood is that you've never seen it. Meanwhile, our national counterterrorism strategy says that one of the first things that should be done is to identify these groups. So that's number one. The intelligence organizations, the president should issue a tasking. The governor can't do that, but the president can do that. Issue a tasking immediately. In fact, give them 1 month to identify and profile all the members and leadership of these organizations. And after they've identified them, let them publish them in national TV, in newspapers, so that every Nigerian knows who they are. Then the next component of the tasking is that the president should give them 1 month to arrest, and where they resist arrest, to kill those that have been identified. And I say this with all sense of responsibility. The first thing is to arrest them. Where they resist arrest, then yes, we do have enough local standing to kill them, as the National Counterterrorism Strategy and the Terrorism Prevention Act provides for. So the last component of that is to also use the soft approach to counterterrorism, to deny them the ability to generate funding, deny them the ability to recruit new members, and deny them the ability to get weaponry to continue their activities. Now, that for me is a better solution than bombardment. Like I said earlier on, studies have shown that bombardment would only give them the fodder, as it were, to recruit further and continue to propagate as terrorist groups always do.
All right, even as we begin to round up now, as it looks, Dr. Kabir, it seems as though we have stretched all our options. What else is there that we are yet to see or use? Because you recall the complete shutdown of telecommunication network in some of this northeastern states. And then, do we have any options left that we are yet to take up?
I just gave you a couple of options, and believe me, if we follow that option in 3 months, this will be over.
Okay.
I was very clear in giving like a time frame and a timeline for what I think should be done. And if it's done, then believe me, like I said, in 3 months, this will be over. There are 27 ministries, departments, and agencies in government. If the president issues that directive, and then the various coordinating elements within our security architecture take up that presidential tasking and introduces M&E, monitoring and evaluation mechanism, to see how these 27 are responding to the presidential directive. Remind you, it's within 1 month. And at the end of that 1 month, they do an evaluation to see which of these 27 have implemented Mr. President's directive. Those that have failed, let their leadership go. And then new persons are appointed. Believe me, within that 1 month, and then the next directive that I mentioned, which is to go after those that have been identified. In 3 months, this thing will be over. So those options that you listed out are lazy options. They are options that some leaders took, and frankly, they are not in any way rooted in security. If you ask me in all sincerity, a lot of them are more political than security related. So it's absolutely important that we do the right thing. The politicizing security is not the way to go. This thing would swallow us if we do not tackle it immediately, and the solutions are there. I've given some of these solutions. Others I can't give on public media like this. I don't know your reach. If you've got reach to any of those membership of the security leadership, I'm happy to provide this pro bono. I don't have any other country. This is my country, and anything I do to support the end of this, I would gladly do it.
All right. Now, aside the ministry that you talked about, there have been continuous calls for state or community policing, as the case may be. But on the other hand, you get responses of how much state governors could use them at their own whims and caprices. At this point, those calling for state police or community policing, do they have justifiable reason for that call?
So I will answer your question in 2 dimensions. First off, I am in support of the decentralization of security. Now, that's different from state policing. Decentralization of security would mean giving the state governors more responsibility in security. So as an example, they are already chairmen of the state security councils at the subnational levels. All governors are chairmen of that. Second level option, if they also receive a security vote, which is constitutional. Now, so we need to make these things constitutional. We need to introduce mechanisms for the functionality of these two functions, where there are means and mechanisms for monitoring them and ensuring that governors do it equitably. If you look at 2 states, as an example, Lagos State has a novel idea of using a security vote. It has set up a security trust fund, and every individual, every company that's operating in Lagos is encouraged to contribute money to that trust fund. And because that trust fund is transparent, companies, entities, individuals, donate to that trust fund. If you go to my state as an example, which is Sokoto State, despite the numerous challenges, does not have a trust fund, a security trust fund. The governor donates money to this security organization, and there is no transparent way of monitoring how that money is being donated and how it's being used. Companies are not encouraged to donate directly. Rather, what we do, if you have a company or a house that you want protection, you go to the police, they give you a number of police officers, you pay money, and I can bet you that money goes to somebody's pocket. It doesn't really go to the treasury. So again, I'm in support of the decentralization of security in a manner that is constitutional. The second part of your question, which is state policing, in the long run, I am in support of state policing as an aspect of this decentralization. But before we do that, we need to strengthen democracy at the subnational level, strengthen the ability of the legislature and judiciary to introduce checks and balances against the executive. Otherwise, we're going to have emperors that unfortunately would rule the states in the manner that emperors do. They are already doing that, even without the state policing. Imagine if there is state policing, what would have happened? So let's strengthen democracy at the state level first.
Thank you so much for your time with us, Dr. Kabir Adamu. It's been a wonderful time having this talk with you.
The pleasure is mine.
Same here, sir. All right, we have been chatting with Dr. Kabir Adamu. He is a security consultant, and we earlier talked to Dr. Emeka Okengu, who is a development economist. Now, it's been a wonderful time here on The Conversation. I'm sure you must have been entertained, rightly educated, and informed. I will definitely see you next time. From the nation's capital, Abuja, I am Annabelle Oji. God bless Nigeria.